The hardest truth to accept is not that life is difficult. It's that the version of you that keeps struggling is no longer real. It only feels real because you keep returning to it. There is a moment everyone reaches, quiet, internal, where effort stops producing growth. Not because effort is wrong, but because identity has expired. The strategies that once worked no longer move anything. The discipline feels heavy, the motivation feels forced. That's not burnout, that's evolution trying to happen. Most people panic at this stage. They try harder, they repeat old habits louder, they push a version of themselves that life has already moved past, and life resists, not out of punishment but because that version is finished. Here's the part no one explains: struggle does not always mean failure. Sometimes struggle means you're trying to survive an identity that should have been released. The mind does not like identity death. It clings. It says, at least this version is familiar, at least I know how to suffer here. Familiar pain feels safer than unfamiliar peace. So people stay stuck not because they can't grow, but because they refuse to let go of who they are. This is why transformation feels disorienting. Old habits stop working, old motivations feels empty, old rewards don't satisfy anymore. And instead of seeing this as progress, people call it a crisis. It's not crisis, it's graduation. You don't outgrow struggle by winning, you outgrow struggle by no longer needing it to define you. That's terrifying. Yeah, I know, because struggle gave you an identity. It made you feel strong, it made you feel resilient, it made you feel justified, but it also kept you busy avoiding the next version of you. This is why most people sabotages themselves. They resurrect the old self, they go back to overworking, overthinking, over-explaining, over-proving. Anything to feel like themselves again, but that self is expired and life will keep blocking you until you expect that. There is nothing wrong with you. There is something ending, and endings feel like loss before they feel like freedom. There is a reason the old version of you keep returning. Not because it's strong, but because it's familiar. Familiarity feels like safety to the nervous system, even when it hurts. That's why people stay in cycles they claim to hate. That's why struggle becomes an identity instead of a phase. And that's why growth stalls right before it stabilizes. The body would rather repeat known pain than risk unknown peace. Understand this clearly. The old version of you is not evil, it is protective. It was built to survive uncertainty, to push when there was no support, to hustle when there was no clarity, to endure when there was no direction. That version carried you through chaos. But survival mode identities are not designed for expansion. They crack under stability. Here's what happens when life tries to upgrade you. The external pressure reduces, the chaos softens, the struggle becomes optional, and suddenly you feel uncomfortable. Rest feels wrong, calm feels suspicious, ease feels undeserved, so the mind creates problem. Not because you enjoy suffering, but because struggle is the language of your nervous system understands. This is why people self-sabotage right before breakthrough. They don't trust environment without friction. They don't know who they are without something to fight. So they unconsciously recreates pressure, deadlines, urgency, conflicts, overworking, anything to feel normal again. This is the paradox. The old you survives by effort. The new you survives by alignment. Effort is loud, alignment is quiet. Effort proves worth, alignment assumes worth. And the transition is terrifying. Most people think transitions or transformation looks dramatic. It doesn't. I have personally felt this. It really doesn't. It feels empty at first, old motivation disappears, old rewards stop saying, old goals feel strangely irrelevant, and old rewards stop satisfying. And the mind panics, if I'm not chasing, who am I? That question is the doorway. Most people turn back right there. Let's talk about identity death honestly. Identity death is not depression. It's not laziness. It's not failure. It's the collapse of outdated self-concepts. The belief that once kept you alive are no longer needed, and the mind doesn't like redundancy. So it resists. This is where discipline breaks down for many people. Not because they are weak, but because discipline tied to suffering no longer works. They were disciplined because they were afraid of being poor, afraid of being overlooked, afraid of being powerless. When fear dissolves, that fuel source disappears, and they mistake that for loss of drive. It's not. It's a shift in power source. The next level is powered by clarity, not fear, but clarity takes time to settle. And in that gap between fear-driven effort and clarity-driven action, there is a void. That void feels like stagnation. It isn't, it's calibration. This is the most dangerous phase of growth, because nothing feels wrong enough to fix, and nothing feels enough to trust. You're not struggling like before, but you're not following yet either. So the old self whisper, go back, at least it worked, and many people listen. But here's the truth. Every time you resurrect the old version, life delays you again, not to punish you, but because you're trying to enter a future with an expired identity. And life doesn't negotiate with outdated versions. Trust me, this is why external motivation stops working now. Why advice feels shallow? Why hustle contents feel empty? Why even spiritual content stops landing the same way? You're not broken. You're in between identities. And here's the uncomfortable realization: no one carry you through this phase. Yes, my friends, this is the harsh reality. No one can carry you through this phase. Not mentors, not routines, not strategies, because this phase is not about doing, it's about letting go. Letting go of proving, over explaining, over efforting, romanticizing struggle, and letting go feel like loss until it becomes freedom. But we are not done, because the real question isn't why the old version is dying. The actual real question is what replaces it. That's where most people get scared, and that's exactly where. When the old version finally loosens its grip, nothing dramatic happens, no explosion, no announcement, no applause, just quiet. And that quiet feels unfamiliar because your life used to be loud. This is the moment most people misinterpret. They think they have lost ambition, they think they have lost hunger, they also think something is wrong, but actually nothing is wrong. What's gone is fear-driven movement, and fear was never meant to carry you forever. What replaces struggle is not laziness, it's clarity. Clarity does not shout, it does not rush, it does not beg for permission, it simply knows, and knowing is heavier than motivation. You will notice the change first in your decisions. You stop explaining yourself, you stop justifying time, you stop chasing validations. Not because you don't care, but because you don't need to prove directions anymore. Directions feel internal now. The pace changes, not slower, more intentional. You move when it's clean, you pause when it's not. And for the first time, pauses no longer feel like failure. They feel like strategic. Here's the part few people talk about when struggle leaves. Peace can feel boring at first because struggle gave you adrenaline. It made you feel alive through resistance. Peace gives you space, and space forces honesty. That's why some people run back to chaos. Not because chaos is better, but because silence reveals truth. But if you stay, if you let peace settle, you realize something powerful. You're no longer fighting life. You're cooperating with it. And cooperation multiplies effort. This is when money starts behaving differently, not magically, mechanically. You stop making panic decisions. You stop overworking to feel worthy. You stop underpricing your energy. You choose clear paths. Cleaner path compound faster. Respect changes too. People may not understand you, but they feel you. Your presence becomes grounded. Your words carry weight. Your boundaries stop needing explanations. This is authority without noise. Here's the final truth. The version of you that struggled was necessary, but it was temporary. It taught you endurance, it built resilience, it kept you alive when clarity was missing. But it was never meant to lead your future. You don't kill the old version, you thank it. And then you step forward without it. If you remember one thing from this entire video, remember this. You don't grow by fighting harder, you grow by becoming someone who no longer needs a fight. This is not weakness, this is mastery. Let this settle, because once struggle is released, your life does not become easier, it becomes aligned, and alignments lasts. If this video didn't resonate with you, scroll away. But if something inside you slowed down while listening, that wasn't coincidence, that was recognition. This channel isn't about motivation. It's about identity shift that actually change outcomes, money, disciplines, respect, self-respect, and directions. So if you are done recycling the same version of yourself and ready to move with clarity instead of pressure, subscribe, not for me, for the version of you that no longer wants to struggle to feel alive. If this message spoke directly to you, leave a comment, even just a single word. Not for the algorithm, for commitment. Because once you name a shift, it starts moving faster. And if you know someone who's working hard but still feels stuck in the same loop, send this to them. Some people don't need advice, they need permission to let go of who they were. Next videos goes deeper, not into efforts, into alignment. Be here for it. I'll see you in my next video.